Hey everybody, it's Hussein Kabani, your favorite broker. And right now we are going to be talking about how we're always learning new things. What did we learn about?
We learned that if you assume a mortgage and you're a seller, you're still going to be held liable.
And we're going to jump right into it. And this story is going to explain why you need to double check all your paperwork. Make sure you have an awesome lawyer and that you don't get stuck holding a bag.
Live behind decisions I chose. Peaks feel good and the valleys get low. Chains for the tires in the rain, hail, snow. It's like this everywhere that I go, everywhere that I go.
So we basically get approached to do a listing. And there's a very sweet deal to this listing, which is basically, the mortgage rates are high right now. Well, this person actually has around 2 years left on a mortgage, a fixed mortgage, at 2.24%.
Yeah.
So, wow, why wouldn't you want to jump on this? So I actually, was okay listing this property a little bit higher than what I would have normally felt comfortable with, because I was like, that's a sweet deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like someone's going to gravitate towards that. You know what I mean? We haven't done this before, but I said it can't be that complicated. I talked to some people. They're like, yeah, assumable mortgage. You can assume it. It's fine. No big deal. You can send it off to them. So we're like, okay, great. So even then, we ended up listing the property. We didn't have too many showings on it. It was decent enough. But what happened was we generated 2 offers on that property, right?
Correct.
And obviously we went with the higher offer. They were both conditional deals.
Correct.
And we would have nothing wrong with the house, right? Like they wanted to do a financing condition or mortgage approval, and they wanted to do a home inspection, which is cool. Like just go ahead and do that. And it was a full 5 days. So they went ahead and did that. They didn't have any conditions to actually assume the mortgage. They just had a financing clause on it. And they even asked for a contact for the BMO or wherever the mortgage was. And we
to facilitate the whole setup, right?
Yeah. So we kind of gave them the contacts that we had and said, you're on your own. Try to figure this thing out. Good luck. And it turns out that, they did offer a good price. I don't think it was anything more or less than what it should be. It was a decent price, right? It was a decent enough price to take. And then they came back and they're like, yeah, everything looks good. Even with the home inspection, there was nothing really wrong with the home inspection. And they were still not even at the 1 year mark. So they even had the opportunity to do a full 1 year.
Correct,
and if you guys know about new construction, you basically have what I will call a bumper to bumper warranty for the first year. Everything is covered. So they even had the opportunity, if they wanted to walk through the whole house and fill out the tearing-on stuff themselves. So they go forward with the deal. They firm up, and everything is going fine because we don't hear anything. They do a visit, and then we even tell them, hey, our clients even mentioned to them, hey, our warranty period is coming up, so if you guys want, we can just transfer you guys the account for the tearing-on, and you guys can do the walkthrough on your own, and you guys can submit the online form for tearing-on yourself, right? So you guys can manage that process. Very nice of our clients to allow them access to that and transfer everything over. Which
beyond the revisit, exactly. And I think it was a very quick closing too, which was great. It was like a sweet deal, the right amount of money. The finance condition was completed very quickly, and then you're doing the tearing-on certificate, and the closing is just very fast approaching.
So it was a good deal all around for everybody.
Overall,
but this is something that hasn't happened in a very long time. Assumable mortgages, no one's really dealt with them in a long time. So unless you've been around, I guess in the late 80s, early 90s, you probably weren't really familiar with what was going on. It sounds pretty straightforward, assumable mortgage, but turns out it's not. It's not actually a very easy process. So what ends up happening is that our clients go to their lawyer for the closing preparation and whatever else like that. And they're reading through the documents. Thank God. You know what I mean? I'm the type of person, okay, sign this, whatever. But she's going through the documents and realizes that when the buyer assumes the mortgage, they are still going to be responsible for the mortgage. It's a really weird setup from what I understand. And anyone out there, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? But it's a very weird setup. The title transfers to the buyer.
Correct.
The mortgage transfers to the buyer. But the seller is still responsible for the mortgage without having title if that person defaults.
So if they just say, hey, we don't feel like making our payments anymore and go into default, the sellers are responsible for paying.
Which is a really, really weird thing. I would never, ever, ever have expected something like that. And I said, it must be wrong. Like, there's no chance. Like, how can you actually transfer the property and the mortgage and the previous person is still responsible?
Yeah.
It's like me selling my car or through lease busters, and I'm still responsible if that person like scratches the daylights out of this car. Like, they're going to come back to me. How does that even make sense? Do you know what I mean? So then I call some old school lawyers that have been around the block a few times. Like, I don't call any new lawyers. I know a lot of cool new lawyers that know their shit, but I call old school lawyers. I'm like, dude, I need some old school knowledge over here from you. I call Jonathan Griffiths, and he's great, right away. He's like, yep.
That's how it works.
That's how it works. I was like, you're kidding me. He's like, no, it gets better. I was like, what do you mean it gets better? He's like, so once that mortgage is transferred and that person renews the mortgage, you're still on the hook.
Yeah.
So I was like, what? Are you telling me that after the 2-year term, they just simply renew?
Yeah.
And you're still on the hook. He's like, yep, that's exactly what it means. So if they decide they don't want to pay after the 2-year mortgage is over, they renew. And after a year, they're just like, you know what? We don't want this anymore. We're not going to deal with this. It goes back to the other person and they don't even hold title. So they're still responsible financially for that property.
And it will show up on your credit report, like everything.
That's the other thing we learned about too, is that it still shows up on your credit bureau.
Yeah.
Like imagine this, you transfer it off and whatever, it's gone. And even if you are like, listen, even if you're like, hey, it's okay. You know what? They have a substantial amount of down payment that they're putting into the house. Yeah. They're very solid people. Why would they do that? They're putting in like 50% of the purchase of the property into it. Even if they default, good for me. Like if I can pick up that property, you know what I mean? After they paid 50% to it. And even if they don't default and everything runs really smoothly, every time you do a credit hit, like that property still shows up and counts against you.
Which is just doesn't make sense. And I think we still have a lot of questions around this, and we're probably going to get
someone on here to talk to us,
or maybe a couple of lawyers actually, just to get their side of the story. But we have a lot of questions. We want to understand why such a thing would even exist, why you would say, hey, you have an assumable mortgage and use this as that.
And maybe the lawyer doesn't even have an answer, right? Maybe it's the way that the bank wants to still tie somebody into this whole thing, because from the bank's perspective, it's great to tie in more people, right? You have more options of getting your money out by hooking more people into it. But there was another interesting thing that kind of came out of this. Yeah. So being collaborative again, like we're not going against anybody. Oh, wow, what a crappy situation that occurred. Let's figure this thing out. Like, how can we move around this? You know, we want to work with you. We want to make sure that we do our best to make sure that your client gets this rate. What can we do? Our client was awesome. Like she went to bat. Do you know what I mean?
Very diligent,
she's trying to figure out like, hey, how can we still get this over? So through her research, she basically found out that, hey, there is kind of a way of getting out of this whole thing, okay? What we could do is we can actually let them assume the mortgage, okay? We'll let them assume the mortgage, but what we're going to do is we're going to ask them for a hefty deposit, like say $50K on closing, okay? So we're going to hold on to that $50,000 and they're going to assume the mortgage. And they worked out a deal with BMO somehow that what's going to happen after that is they're going to refinance the whole house, okay? They're going to refinance this mortgage, and the rate was like 2.24, but they were going to get like 2.3. You know, it was insignificant of how much more it would go up, but they were going to get a really stellar rate still, and it was still worth it, right? And once they have proven that they've refinanced it in that 30 days, then, you know, my seller's lawyer would release that $50,000 or whatever back to the buyers, and everyone's good. So everyone's off the hook, and we thought, great, this is a great deal. It's going to take some time to figure this thing out. Let's do that. We extend the deal and we're like, okay, we're going to get through this. Well, guess what? We approach closing again and they get the revised documents and they're going through the documents again. And guess what? That is still going to show up on their credit bureau. And there's no guarantee that this person's going to go and refinance this property. So there's still a big liability left on the seller's end over here. So it's like, you know, at the end of the day, I wouldn't feel comfortable with doing something like that. And my seller's asking me, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't feel good about that. You know what I mean? They're probably great people. We're probably never going to have an issue with them or whatever else like that.
But you can't predict the future and someone's situation, right?
So a pretty crappy situation to end up with, a huge learning experience on both sides.
And I think, again, the seller was really diligent, so she caught on to this pretty nicely as well. But also the clause, like the condition wasn't written in a way, like you said, that it was contingent on the assumable mortgage working out. So that also worked out very nice. So a little bit of luck there as well. But it's crazy.
I mean, like, hey, put it this way. Should that clause have been inserted in there?
Yes,
like basically that, hey, we are going to be assuming the mortgage
Yes.
for X amount of months
Yeah.
at this rate and whatever else like that. Like that would have been a big problem on our end. You know
yeah.
what I mean? If we accepted that, then my sellers would have been
Liable, yeah.
responsible for all of this stuff. And honestly, if that clause did come up in the agreement, what I would have done is that, I would have put in a seller's lawyer review condition in that, because I don't feel
Yes.
comfortable accepting that or telling my client that's okay to accept.
For sure,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? We would have put a condition in that to say, hey, you have to. But, if they had put that in there and somebody didn't know what was going
Yeah.
on and accepted that, they would have really tied their client
Yeah.
to that deal overall.
And even though we didn't get a lot of showings like you mentioned, or didn't get that many offers, we did get a lot of inquiries because that assumable mortgage was written in the mortgage comments on the MLS listing, and the amount of phone calls we got asking about that. And a part of me wonders, did they all know what it kind of entailed?
No, I doubt it.
Or did no one know what was going on? And we still got a crazy amount of phone calls asking, what does that mean?
Highly
and
doubt
what
it.
entailed.
Well, that's the call. That was a call. It's like,
Yeah.
what does this mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It was a new concept overall.
Yeah.
Learning lesson, and luckily no liabilities
Yes.
on our side, and everything.
damages and-
Everything looks like it's going to be going just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome outcome. I'm sure the buyers will get over it, and they've secured other financing,
Yes.
and
And smart buyers too. Like sometimes you're in a situation where buyers are not making the smartest decision, and then that worries you. But in this case, it wasn't. I feel like we lucked out in all
Even after we
departments.
did the extension, they even came back and moved up the dates.
Yeah. They asked for a
so-
longer extension, and then turns out they didn't need so many days, and then they said, "Hey, we'll just close earlier." So
Collaborative.
smart people,
that's how
smart
these
buyers
deals
and sellers. Yep.
That's how these deals are moving forward right now. You need agents to be collaborative and work
Yes.
together, and not against each other,
Yeah.
and just do the right thing.
Be nice
Yeah.
and be kind.
So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Hope you guys have learned from this. And I hope you guys comment below and let us know what you guys think about this story. And if you guys have experienced something else like this. And if you guys have any other questions, our calendar link is always below. So I encourage you guys to click on the link below and let's have an honest conversation about real estate and what your real estate needs are. And I would love to just give you my feedback, my 2 cents on how you may consider moving forward. Until next time, guys, remember one thing.
Get Kabani, get sold.
Sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sold. Sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sold. Sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sold. Sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sold.